When running underground feeder cable to post lamps near a pool, it's crucial to adhere to specific distance requirements to ensure safety and comply with electrical codes. It's important to know that the 10-foot rule mentioned applies only to the bottom of the bonding grid, not to the placement of underground feeder cable. For underground feeder cable installations, you must maintain a minimum distance of 5 feet away from the inside wall of the pool. This setback is critical to prevent electrical hazards and ensure that any potential faults do not pose a risk to swimmers. This 5-foot rule provides a buffer zone, reducing the likelihood of electrical current reaching the pool water. It is a vital safety measure outlined in the National Electrical Code, or NEC. Always consult the latest edition of the NEC and local electrical codes for the most accurate and up-to-date information, as regulations can change. To correctly install the underground feeder cable, you need to consider several factors. Firstly, the type of cable. Underground feeder cable, or UF cable, is specifically designed for direct burial in the ground, meaning it is resistant to moisture, chemicals, and physical damage. Secondly, the burial depth. The NEC specifies minimum burial depths for different types of wiring and applications. For residential applications, underground feeder cable typically needs to be buried at least 12 inches deep. However, this depth can vary depending on local codes and specific circumstances, such as the presence of vehicular traffic. Thirdly, the wiring method. The cable should be installed in a continuous run from the power source to the post lamps, without any splices or connections buried underground. All connections should be made in approved enclosures, such as junction boxes or within the post lamp fixtures themselves. Fourthly, grounding and bonding. Proper grounding and bonding are essential for electrical safety. The underground feeder cable must include a grounding conductor that is connected to the grounding system at the service panel. Additionally, all metal parts of the post lamps and any nearby metal structures, such as fences or handrails, must be bonded together to create a common ground potential. Fifthly, inspections. Before energizing the circuit, it is highly recommended to have the installation inspected by a qualified electrical inspector. The inspector will verify that the wiring complies with all applicable codes and regulations and that it is installed safely and correctly. When installing post lamps near a pool, consider the overall layout and design. Ensure that the lamps are positioned to provide adequate lighting without creating glare or reflections that could impair visibility in the pool area. Use shielded or recessed fixtures to minimize light pollution and direct the light downwards towards the ground. Choosing the right type of post lamps is also important. Select fixtures that are specifically designed for outdoor use and are rated for wet locations. These fixtures are constructed with materials that are resistant to corrosion and moisture and are equipped with weatherproof seals to protect the electrical components. The power source for the post lamp should be a dedicated circuit breaker in the service panel. This circuit should be protected by a ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, to provide additional protection against electrical shock. The GFCI will quickly trip the circuit if it detects a ground fault, preventing a potentially dangerous situation. Prior to starting any electrical work, always disconnect the power to the circuit at the service panel. Use a voltage tester to verify that the circuit is de-energized before touching any wires or component. Wear appropriate personal protective equipment, or PPE, such as insulated gloves and safety glasses to protect yourself from electrical hazards. If you are not comfortable working with electricity, it is always best to hire a qualified electrician to perform the installation. A licensed electrician has the knowledge, skills, and experience to ensure that the wiring is installed safely and correctly. They can also help you navigate the complex requirements of the electrical code and obtain the necessary permits and inspections. Understanding the bonding grid is also important. The bonding grid is a network of conductive materials that are interconnected to create a common ground potential throughout the pool area. Its purpose is to minimize voltage gradients and reduce the risk of electrical shock. The bonding grid typically consists of a bare copper wire that is buried around the perimeter of the pool and connected to all metal parts of the pool structure, such as the reinforcing steel and the concrete shell, the metal frame of the pool, and any metal ladders or handrails. The bonding grid must also be connected to the equipment grounding conductor of the pool equipment, such as the pump motor and the pool heater. The 10-foot rule applies to the placement of the bonding grid relative to the inside wall of the pool. The NEC requires that the bonding grid be installed no more than 10 feet away from the inside wall of the pool. This ensures that the entire pool area is effectively bonded and that any potential voltage differences are minimized. Regular maintenance of the electrical system around the pool is also essential. Inspect the wiring, fixtures, and equipment for any signs of damage or corrosion. Replace any damaged components promptly to prevent electrical hazards. Test the GFCI breakers regularly to ensure that they are functioning properly. Push the test button on the GFCI breaker and verify that it trips the circuit. If the GFCI breaker does not trip, it should be replaced immediately. Keep the area around the pool clear of any obstructions that could interfere with the electrical system. Do not store flammable materials or chemicals near the wiring or equipment. Avoid using extension cords or portable electrical devices near the pool, as these can pose a shock hazard. Educate all pool users about electrical safety and the potential hazards of using electrical devices near the water. Post warning signs around the pool area to remind people to be careful. If you have any questions or concerns about the electrical system around the pool, consult with a qualified electrician. They can provide expert advice and guidance to ensure that the pool area is safe and compliant with all applicable codes and regulations. Always prioritize safety when working with electricity, especially around water. By following the proper installation procedures, maintaining the electrical system, and educating pool users, you can create a safe and enjoyable environment for everyone. Remember to always consult the latest edition of the National Electrical Code, or NEC, and local electrical codes for the most accurate and up-to-date information, as regulations can change. Working with electricity can be dangerous, so it is always best to hire a qualified electrician if you are not comfortable performing the work yourself. They have the knowledge, skills, and experience to ensure that the wiring is installed safely and correctly. Moreover, familiarize yourself with the specific requirements outlined in the NEC, specifically Article 680, which covers swimming pools, fountains, and similar installations. This article provides detailed information on grounding, bonding, wiring methods, and other safety requirements that are essential for preventing electrical hazards in and around swimming pools. Ensure that all electrical equipment used near the pool, such as pool pumps, heaters, and lighting fixtures, is listed and labeled for use in wet locations. This means that the equipment has been tested and certified by a recognized testing laboratory to meet specific safety standards for use in damp or wet environments. The listing and labeling will indicate that the equipment is designed to withstand exposure to moisture, corrosion, and other environmental factors that can be present near a swimming pool. Pay close attention to the requirements for equipotential bonding. Equipotential bonding is the process of connecting all metal parts of the pool structure and any nearby metal objects to create a common ground potential. This helps to minimize voltage gradients and reduce the risk of electrical shock. The bonding connections must be made with approved connectors and conductors, and they must be properly protected from corrosion. Furthermore, consider the placement of electrical outlets and switches near the pool. The NEC specifies minimum distances for the placement of these devices to prevent them from being easily accessible to swimmers. Receptacles should be located at least 10 feet away from the inside wall of the pool, and switches should be located at least 5 feet away. These distances help to reduce the risk of accidental contact with electrical devices while in or near the water. In addition to the minimum distances, receptacles and switches located near the pool must be protected by ground fault circuit interrupters, or GFCIs. GFCIs are designed to quickly trip the circuit if they detect a ground fault, preventing a potentially dangerous electrical shock. It is also important to ensure that all underground wiring is properly protected from physical damage. The NEC requires that underground wiring be buried at a sufficient depth to prevent it from being damaged by digging, landscaping, or other activities. The minimum burial depth will vary depending on the type of wiring and the location, but it is typically at least 12 inches. In addition to burial depth, underground wiring should also be protected by a suitable raceway, such as rigid metal conduit or PVC conduit. This will provide additional protection against physical damage and corrosion. When installing underground wiring, be sure to avoid any areas where there is a risk of damage from tree roots or other underground obstacles. It is also important to avoid running wiring under driveways, sidewalks, or other areas where it could be subject to heavy loads. Remember to always follow the manufacturer's instructions when installing electrical equipment. The manufacturer's instructions will provide detailed information on how to install the equipment safely and correctly. Failure to follow the manufacturer's instructions could void the warranty and create a safety hazard. Finally, remember that electrical codes and regulations are constantly evolving. It is important to stay up to date on the latest changes and to ensure that all electrical work is performed in accordance with the current codes. This may require consulting with a qualified electrician or electrical inspector to ensure that the work is compliant.